growth, yeah, growth in my love for God, growth in my love for other people, or growth in my evangelism, or growth in courage, like Ada, growth in courage in approaching people. So something like that. That's a topic. Then look for the verses. Look for the verses that will support that and make your notes out of that. So, and then the other outlining, if you prefer textual, you prefer expository, go ahead and do it, but try to do it from scratch. Try to do it from scratch, and what do you call this? And see how you're gonna fare. All right. So, having explained that, does anybody have in their hearts to volunteer already? Leader? Okay, just please text me. Okay. Now we're gonna go to the lesson. I'm
Pastor's
gonna
hand is raised. Pastor volunteered himself.
I won't get here lower hand, right? Lower hand. Every time I do that, it copies me. Okay. So yeah, somehow when I do that, when I'm talking, when I do this, it actually copies it, and then it puts a hand over there. Right there. Okay, lower hand. Okay, so I'm gonna go teach, continue. I have very little material left. And I don't want to discuss a part of this because it's not really as important, but it is. Okay, so it's going to take us a few minutes or probably more. Depends on the responses I'm going to get from you guys, because I do want us to actually we want to have a good grip on this area as well. So let me see. Okay, we're on the preaching part, or the teaching part, the actual teaching part in our hermeneutics and homiletics study, okay, which is again the preparation and the presentation part of teaching. And just as a sort of a review, we talked about, let me see, last thing we talked about is the manner of speaking, right? The manner of speaking, we talked about the audibility, you got to be heard. And honestly speaking, it's a very good, as I said, it's a very good practice to be conscientious, to be conscious about. Like when you're praying for people, it's a very good training. When you're being asked to pray, you don't have a microphone, or you have a microphone, make sure that you're aware of what you're doing. When you're teaching next time around, you're aware of what you're doing. Like, I want everybody to be hearing me. I want to make sure that everybody could hear what I'm saying, because I'm imparting truth. And the very task of teaching is to impart truth. If they can't hear you, then we're not doing our mission properly. So you got to do that. I'll give you an example. I've given this as an example to almost every discipleship we had that talked about the teaching, training and teaching. Like we had a early part of my pastoring in the church. There was like sister, I'm not going to mention the name. Like she has a very tiny voice. Like she has really a very tiny voice, but she talks normally. Honestly, like she has a very tiny voice, but she talks normally. You could understand what you said. But when I ask her, let's say for example, Sister Clara, right? Okay, Sister, we're going to ask Sister Clara to open a word of prayer, right? And she goes from I want to have everybody like this, and then she starts opening prayer, and she goes, and everybody's leaning in towards her. No matter how much you lean in, you really couldn't understand it, because she really lowers her voice so much. I think cockroaches would hear it, but none of us did. Okay, and I'm not exaggerating. It's a true story. A true story. So that would be a good example of what not to do. Okay, what to do is to be very conscious about. Okay, I want everybody to hear what I'm saying. Right? Yes, there'll be ups and downs in your tone, in your volume, but even the softest volume you're expressing, then you have to make sure that everybody could hear it. Next one was clarity. Yeah, we talked about that. Intonation, up and down. Tone, make sure you study your tone. Make sure it's natural, though. You're not making up. You don't try to sound always like, try to make it sound like baritone, or, make it sound like God. There's a misunderstanding somehow. I've shared this to the LCU students. Like there's a misunderstanding. Even when I preach, I want the baritone sound. Like the more baritone and the more bassy you sound, you feel like the more godly you sound. And I heard a preacher actually say, that'll be a big surprise if we get to heaven and you see the Lord Jesus, and he goes, "Come here, come over here." I'm so excited. Oh, yeah, it's gonna be a big surprise. We the Lord Jesus having that kind of voice, right? Okay, but don't as long as it's natural, still do it. Okay, you can want to make it like deeper, that's fine. Okay, and then that's a tone, but make sure again the tone is pleasant. And what helps, by the way, when you teach, we record the teachings. Okay, we record the teachings. I listen to myself a lot of times on my preaching, and I still find myself needing to improve my voice in such a way that I get irritated at times. I get irritated at times with my voice. Okay, so make sure that you listen and you watch. We're recording this. Ask out the bell for the file, or or the bell if it's okay for that, or you tell me how to open it up. Then we could send them the link. Okay, expressions of your face. Make sure your expressions speak. Your eyes. Make your eyebrows speak. Okay, your eyes. If you don't want to raise your eyebrows, your eyes at least. Make your eyes speak. And then gestures. Make sure they're natural gestures. Mannerisms. I told you, some of the mannerisms can be distracting. Now, this is the part that I want to talk about. Okay, personal presentation. Okay, because this is very important. Okay, the first one is hygiene. You have that in your outline. Hygiene. Make sure that when you're teaching, and even by the way, put that like, oh, it's in Zoom. They will not notice. They will not notice. That's fine, but God sees. And since we're training, who are undergoing training, try to train ourselves having that. Okay, take a shower before you teach. If you have time to do so, do so. Pick yourself up before you teach. If you have time to do so, do so. Because take it seriously, because it is a training. Okay, it's a training. So if you have dirt, make sure it's off. It doesn't, like, make sure that all of those things don't show. Um, and dirt could be anywhere, your hair, any part of your body, your face, your body. Because in reality, I had a favorite. Um, we had our favorite one. Probably the majority of the Bible school students, when he teaches, he was one of the favorites, if not the most favorite. He was so good. He was so efficient in teaching. But there was one morning he came to school. He has this big morning glow on one of his eyes. Okay, he had this big morning glow, and you know what I'm talking about, right? This is this big morning glow. He has something, a dirt on his eye. When you wake up in the morning, something like that. So you have that. So somehow, I don't know why he didn't notice himself, but he didn't take it off. Okay. And our favorite, our favorite teacher, a favorite teacher that makes all the students laugh. We laugh at his jokes. We laugh at his stories. That morning, we find ourselves trying not to laugh at him. Okay, just because of that, it distracted us, honestly. And the students were looking at each other. Bible school students looking at each other, like, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna approach this? Especially like back home, people get offended when this, when you point out something. A lot of times, they get so embarrassed. We were so careful, like, well, yeah, how do we approach those anyway? So make sure you look at yourself in the mirror. What do you call this? Make sure that you're taken care of. Okay. Next, yeah, speck on your eye. This is okay. Dirt off, dirt off, dirt off. Okay, dirt off from your clothing. If you have clothes that are dirty, make sure that. And then you know what? In my lifetime as a pastor in FCF, you know what? Kudos to and praises to God for my dear wife. She takes care of that for me. Praise the Lord. Okay, next one on your outlines. It's a filler. Very important, guys. Smell. Smell. We're not always going to be in Zoom. Okay, I don't know. The paradigm may change. Paradigms may change. Like the normal may change, but I still want us to really gather together. That's the point. There's still, and no matter what, even if it's not Bible study, we're going to be gathering together at church. Anyway, so we're still going to interact with each other. But by the way, we were walking somewhere and talking about going back to normal. I saw a shirt. I saw an American flag, and there's the cross on red, like American flag going like almost faded looking, and there's a cross that was red, and it says, um, "Normal is not gonna come back." Like it said on the t-shirt, normal is not going to come back. Jesus is. That's awesome. Okay, normal is not gonna come back. Jesus is. I said, I want to see where that shirt came from. Okay, but anyway, so smell. Okay, make sure if you need to wear perfume, make sure you wear perfume. Just make sure whatever you want to do. Don't. It's a very simple way, by the way, for you not to smell bad. Take a shower. Okay, and brush your teeth. Whatever is smelly. You know what? I'll give you an example. I had a what do you call this? My root canal got infected. Okay, and sometimes I would go close to Ate Bing and go, "Did you brush your teeth already?" And I said, "Why? You smell." And we're already at church. We're already at church, and as he goes, "Okay, here, make sure you put mint in your mouth. Okay, not just mint every time. Put mint in your mouth, not just one, two mint every time. It's like 2 minutes every time. So make sure after the church, I know I was going to talk to people, let's smack those mints in my mouth, and then and make sure that at least whatever smells was covered. Okay, so make sure you do that. Try to always have a mint handy. Okay, if you're a teacher of the word, you're a prayer warrior, you prophesy on the street with people, make sure you always have your mint handy. Pop one before speaking to people. Okay, and again, this is very, very helpful. It's very, very helpful in the one-on-one teaching or discipleship. When you're discipling somebody, make sure you're not distracting them. Okay, because you may be, and then I've seen this, like heard and seen this, like people trying to disciple you. I have ever since I was in elementary. He looked so clean every time. He took a shower. He looks showered every time, or in the Philippines, bathed. It's like he looked like that every time, very clean. But when he speaks, it was really offensive. It was really, really offensive. So I would like slowly try to make my way farther. Now it's just imagine, because you don't want to be rude. But see, the point is, if you're discipling someone, then his mind goes to your disciple, goes to like, how can I not like offend him? So instead of listening to what you're saying, especially boys, guys, our minds, like a lot of times we cannot multitask even our brains. If our brains are covered with, how can I not offend this person? How can I avoid the smell? Then we're not, again, doing our mission properly. We're distracting from our mission. So try to make sure, if Ate Bing said 2 minutes, okay, if it takes 5 minutes in your mouth, go ahead and do it. Just just make sure, okay, just make sure that you don't distract from the work of God. Okay, so by the way, don't do this. Don't do this. Like, I can't smell it, because honestly, you can't smell your own breath. You could be the baddest breath in town, and you think you're okay because you can't smell. I don't know why, but you can't smell your own breath, right? Okay, so that's just, again, it's very, very important. Like when you start teaching, especially in person, make sure you have that mint. Okay. Okay. All right. So be careful. Again, that's something Paul was talking about. Say, make sure we want authenticity in the church. Speaking in tongues, authentic. The move of God, authentic. So if anybody gets slain, we want it to be authentic. We want the person slain by the Holy Spirit, and not by the bad breath of a person where you're praying for him. Okay. So Belle?
I was just laughing because it made me think about all these things Pastor's saying, right? And I remember thinking about, I think, some of my mom's stories, about Pastor and all the other stuff that I've also seen. And I feel like you might, at least, I'm just like commenting right now, like I just feel like maybe you would think like, oh, that's so shallow. Why would we even like think about all these things, where why do we have to dress nice, or why do we have to, I don't think it's so much about dressing nice than it is to be presentable, that make it look like, I would say, like, because we watched the Jesus Revolution, and a lot of the people that were preaching there were hippies, you know what I mean? Like, and some of the religious people in the church were actually like didn't want them in the church, right? Because of the way they were dressed, but they were so on fire for God. and they were able to, I would say, like co-minister to the people that look like them in a sense, like the hippies in the past, where now it's actually cool to dress that way, but I think more importantly that at least for me, be able to just look presentable. It's kind of like, it doesn't have to be like, okay, suit and tie, and I think those are just basic human hygiene, like Pastor's talking about. So I was laughing so hard because I feel like this is kind of like stuff that I learned when I was in middle school or growing up in the Philippines, but these are basic things that I actually would be more inclined for someone to listen to us, and to kind of like, and say like, okay, cool, they're not so bad, like they might dress like hippies, but like they're actually cool people, like they make sense or all that. And part of that is first, like the optics, right? Like first thing that they see is who we are, or first thing that they feel is who we are. And I think it's important, but I'm sure a lot more important is the content that we're saying and the life that we're living in. But it's the first thing that they see, like I think about even our coffee shop, right? Like we served at a big event, and we were kind of just rushing, and we do those little latte art thing, and every time like either Maddie or Ada would do like a latte art, like everybody would say like, wow, like it takes longer for them to do it, but every time that they would get a coffee and they paid whatever amount that they pay, they basically see it as like, oh my gosh, they took time to make it look presentable. And I feel like that's kind of the same way for us when we do share the word or bring in the gospel, and however God leads you to dress appropriately for the event. So thought we're just gonna share that.
Yeah. Thank you, Val. What do you call this again? So even in our dressing, like on your outline, you see apparel. So we have the smell, we have the apparel. Make sure again. I don't know in our generation. That's why I want to ask you. I'm not a young preacher or pastor, so there are a lot of different things happening there in like the millennials and different generation X, Y, Z. They almost have very different standards, but I know that the Bible has a principle that for me, it's a very good guideline when it comes to whatever generation we're in. Even Belle was sharing, and she used words like appropriate. Okay, like, okay, he just used the word appropriate. So what is appropriate? And then you come into that point where you go, what is appropriate for the business people may not be appropriate for the hippies. It's like, where do you draw the line? Like if you're having a church in the beach, it's like you're doing outreach on the beach, and you let them come to church. Is it okay to have not to change your two-piece, and attend church and worship God on a two-piece, and for me, you get like, what does what does the Bible say? Because men are visual people. They may be worshiping a different God, like even if their hands are up there. So, but the appropriate ones, make sure it's neat, like whether you're hippie or not. Wash your clothes, okay? Make sure it's neat. I don't know if it's an in thing that there are deliberately clothes that are not ironed and they're designed not to be ironed, you know. But I don't know. Do you still iron clothes right now? Like one of the I heard, like we were speaking to
Theme.
a wife or a steam. Yeah, we were this what do you call, my wife has a spray that like really literally saves her minutes upon minutes. All you gotta do is spray, tap tap tap, like seconds, and it's done. Um, so where do you draw the line? Yeah, how do you draw the line without being legalistic? Okay, like I didn't see the other part of it. Okay, so you have to look at that. Ironed, clean, doesn't smell bad. Again, you don't want it to smell bad. For me, those are like given. There is one rule of thumb. I don't know how it applies now. I want everybody's take on this. There's one rule of thumb before that we learned, which I believe maybe are very close to being based on the principle of the word. And the rule of thumb, like, let me just read to you this a verse first, okay? Let me read to you a verse, because as I said, people have different ways of looking at things. There was a ministry before. I don't know how they're faring now. I'm not going to mention the ministry, but his ministry is towards like motorcycle gangs and all of those. Um, he preaches with a vest, like a leather vest. That's all he had. Pants, leather pants, a lot of times with jeans and a leather vest, right? And basically his arms, most of his arms are showing and all those things, but that's okay. What do you say about that? But let me just look at this. First Timothy 2, 9 through 10. It says, I also want the woman, okay, so this refers to woman in context, but I think the principle is the same. I also want the woman to dress modestly. See that? The word modest. Okay, so whether you're wearing a hippie kind of clothes, whether you're wearing like a business kind of clothes, you're wearing like jeans and t-shirt, there somehow you know that there's this a demarcation line for being modest or not. Okay, like you may be wearing t-shirt, but it may be as tight as a suman, like like a like tighter than a wrap burrito or something. I don't know. A tamale? Is tamale wrap? You would, huh? What's suman in English? But some of those hippie looking clothes cost more than entire outfit, right? Especially nowadays, right? Okay, so modest. Okay, here you go. I also want the woman to dress modestly. First one, with decency, decent, okay, modest, decent, and propriety. That's what Bell was talking about a while ago. It's got to be appropriate. But then appropriate can be, what do you call it? Appropriate can be relative. What's appropriate for one, it'll be appropriate for all. It says, but it adds more, it clarifies it. Decency and propriety, adorning themselves not with elaborate hairstyles or gold or pearls or expensive perfume clothes, but with good deeds, appropriate for women who profess to worship God. Okay, yes.
Jason has something to say.
Okay, Jason, what is it? What is it?
People see all of those, including moderate,
Uh-huh.
as variable,
The-
depending on the situation. Moderate to what?
Right, that's it. It's relative, right? So I want to throw it out there. Like, what is the rule of thumb for us before? Okay, can I give you a rule of thumb? Like, what is moderate, decent, and appropriate? When I was in the Bible school, we came up with this rule of thumb. What is that? Of course, one thing is it should. If you look at the concept here, it should not be bringing attention to yourself. Okay, it should not be taking focus away from true worship of the one you have to worship, which is God. Okay, if your earrings are overdone, if your decorations are overdone, if your jewelries and accessories are overdone, you look like a Christmas tree. Then you'll be bringing attention. You'll be bringing attention to yourself. You don't want that as well. Cindy Lauper, is it Lauper? How do you say that? Cindy
Lauper. I think
Lau-
Cindy Lauper.
Lauper.
I thought how do you say it?
Cindy Lauper.
Lauper.
Even Cindy
there you go.
Lauper. Okay.
Cindy
Even Cindy
Lauper.
Lauper. Even Cindy
Cindy
Lauper.
Lauper.
There you go. There you go. Thank you. Muchas gracias, amigo. Okay, so even Cindy Lauper was asked to remove her necklaces. Okay, when they were recording "We Are the World." Okay, because she like yeah, like and when she was doing that, her accessories were going like that. So even she was asked to remove because now it's off mission. It's not helping the mission anymore. Okay, it was taking the attention away from the mission. The very same thing. Like now, so the rule of thumb is this. It's got the rule of thumb that we formulated out of it, at least people from Bible school friends in our churches. I think it just even in our church we applied this already, is this. Like you look at the people in our church, okay? And then you see the average. Okay, some people come to church with shorts. Some people come to church like Anthony. Where's Anthony? Is Anthony still here? Anthony, are you listening to me, Anthony? Okay.
Yeah, yes, sir.
All right. Okay. So
Yes, Pastor.
you see people who come to church with like really as casual as could be, as rugged as could be. And then you see Anthony showing us a different standard. Like every Sunday, he's gonna be a rap model or something. Okay. So the thing that we had is it's so funny when he was gonna get married. I said like, man, if he dresses like that every Sunday, I wonder what he's gonna wear on his wedding day. But so you take the top and then you take the bottom and you average it. What's the average kind of clothing that your church people have? And you look at that average, modest, the modesty part, moderate part, right? And then you have one step up. You see it? That's the way we did it. Like moderate and then one step up in your culture where you are moving in, the church culture where you're moving in. That's what it is. Okay. Like I said, if you belong to the hippie groups, but you know what? Again, depending, I think, on how the Lord will lead you. Because honestly speaking, Chuck Smith, I haven't seen the movie, but I know him. He doesn't know me. Okay. But what I know is Chuck Smith, he he was reaching out to the hippies. Okay. Now the main guy that was working with him, it was a true blue, wholehearted hippie, right? And it was really hard, but he did not feel the need. I don't know if the movie showed anything, but Chuck Smith remained Chuck Smith. He would be speaking to the hippies with his, he preaches with the regular, like very, very Chuck Smithy, like a t-shirt, well, what do you go, formal t-shirt, shirt, or sometimes with suit and all of that. But he didn't try to become a hippie. So it depends again on what the Lord will lead you to do. But otherwise, this is the rule of thumb that we had. Find a middle ground and take a step up. Just not one notch, two notches higher to become more presentable. So now listen, all of us will be volunteering. You may be in Zoom. Let's practice this. I'm gonna ask you for this. Whether we gather together or you're gonna be in Zoom, is to apply this. Okay, so if you're the preacher for the day, if you're the teacher for the day, I want you to figure out these are the people in the church. What is our in my consideration? What is our median? And then I'm going to wear something a little better than that. Okay. So when it's your turn, my encouragement is for you to do that from here on. From here on. So we're going to practice that. So now that's the reason why when you get invited, when you get invited to a church, you could just speak to a pastor. What's the culture of the church, right? What's the culture of the church? If you're casual, that'll be good, But there are always acceptable things. You live in the United States, suit is a common thing. You know what I'm saying? Like it's always like appropriate almost, depending, of course, on the weather and all of that, other variables. But there are acceptable wears, no matter what. Okay, in Hawaii, it's always acceptable to wear a aloha shirt. Whether it's the most formal occasion there may be, it's always acceptable to wear a formal shirt. Hang loose. That's what it is. Like you relax, no matter what, you're relaxed. That's what it is. Okay, so what's your take on that? Do you think that's a good principle to live by? Do you think that's something, or could we improve on that? The hard part is when it comes to the extremes again. And like when, as I said, I was giving an extreme example about what about if you have outreach on the beach? In all those places, and they're used to like, what about if you have an out? But wait, there are people who are part of naked. What do you call this? What do you call this thing? Naked colonies or naked beaches? Nudist colony, right? Oh, so what do you do? I mean, what's the average? What's the average on that one, right? Fab, come on, you have your hand raised now. Let's hear your wisdom.
No, I was good. It's me, Tom. But
Let's hear your
I
wisdom, Brother Tom.
I was gonna say, when I was younger, or even in today's standards, there's times I've gone to church in basketball shorts, and t-shirts and stuff with baseball caps, and that was unheard of back in the 70s. When growing up in the 70s as a young boy, I couldn't even try to get that past my mom and dad. There was like every time we went to church, I don't care if it was Mondays to service through Friday service, or Sunday. You had to go looking presentable. You know, it was, you had to wear dress shoes, you had to wear your dress pants, you had to wear your best. Now Sunday, you had to wear your Sunday best. You know, and I remember I was shocked when we went to when we were young and we went to an all-white church, and the pastor, it was a weekday service, and the pastor was wearing OP shorts and Birkenstock sandals and a t-shirt and everything like that. And I said, I looked at my mom and I go, see, Mom, I go, look, he's the pastor and he's wearing regular clothes. And my mom was like, nice try. Nice try.
Yeah, your mom probably didn't go back there anymore, right?
Right, right. It was just like, well, this is how we do it, she says. You bring your best to the Lord. And you know, I was Antonio, me and Antonio, Tony were talking about that. And Tony was telling me that he likes to look good for God.
There you go.
And that impressed me. But you know, I even had to, I was like, you know what? Shame on me. I had to upgrade. I had to upgrade and go back to dressing up for church, you know, because it's the appropriate thing, you know. So that's all I had to say.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Yeah, it's something like that's my wife too, brother Tom. Let me like, when we say like the average, step up notch a little bit. Yeah, we're talking about like, you know, some people really want to. I was gonna say undress. Some people want to dress down, right? So don't let's for our group at least it's average, step up a notch or two, or the other principle is give your best, give your best, dress your best for the Lord. And that's my wife. That's her principle. Like it's among the best, not necessarily the best. It could be, but among the best, especially if you're going to be teaching the Word of God. Okay, so so it's something that I want everybody to start like really practicing. And we've heard people actually have debates about it. Like, you know, there was somebody that I heard, a very reputable teacher, and it goes like, yeah, some people say like you got, you know, like if you're going to attend a party for the president, he said this. He was making a point. He goes, if you're going to attend a party for the president of the United States, and he said, what are you going to wear? Right? What are you going to wear? And of course, everybody's answer with that will be what? The best of the best, right? You're going to wear the best of the best. And then the next question he had was, what about if he said, what about if the president of the United States is your father? So his suggestive comment was, if he was your father, you don't have to wear the best of the best. But in my mind, I'm going, isn't it the more you're going to wear the best of the best because it's your dad celebrating the birthday, right? But some people would have their thoughts go to the other side, which is, since it's my dad, I could come as casually before him. I could come as freely before him. But again, you talk about, what if it is the celebration for your dad? What if it is a celebration, right? So I'll leave that to you, but at least that's the principle we want to like take for now. If the Lord calls you to be a pastor and the Lord leads you to something different, go for it. You know, as long as you know it's from the Lord. But for us right now, that's median, up notch, and higher. That'll be great. I like to read John Burt's comment here. Right, a while ago, he said, I've gone to work in my basketball shorts. My boss told me to change, right? So it's a helpful comment to get us to realize that there are some things probably if an earthly boss in a regular work probably that doesn't find it appropriate. And again, we're serving the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, being his ambassadors to the world out there. And we want to represent the best of the best. Nobody's greater, nobody's bester than he is. Then we like to represent the best of the best. Okay. So okay, we finished. We actually finished the teaching. But here's the thing: all you got to do,